Jack Thompson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he floated outside the cargo ship Star Wanderer *. The endless black of space stretched around him, broken only by distant stars and the hulking metal shape of his home for the past 3 years. His magnetic boots kept him anchored to the hull while he worked on the stubborn engine panel. "Just needs a little more," he muttered through his spacesuit's comm system, hitting the panel with his wrench. The dent popped out, and he grinned. Sometimes the old ways worked best. A flash of light caught his eye. At first, he thought it was just reflection from the nearby star, but then he saw it again. A ship tumbling slowly through space. Its sleek design was like nothing he'd ever seen before, all curves and flowing lines instead of the boxy human ships he knew. "Captain," he called through the comm. "We've got a damaged vessel at 2 o'clock, about half a mile out. No distress beacon, but something's definitely wrong." "Leave it, Jack. We're on a schedule." Jack watched the ship spin. A hole had been blown in its side, and something about the damage pattern didn't look right. "Captain, that's no accident. Someone shot that ship. We can't just leave them." After a long pause, the captain sighed. "Fine. 30 minutes, then we're gone. And Jack, if we die, I'm haunting you forever." Using his suit's thrusters, Jack pushed off from the Star Wanderer and glided toward the mysterious ship. As he got closer, he saw that the hull was made of some kind of crystal-like material he'd never encountered before. The hull looked like it had been melted through from the inside. Sabotage, not an attack. The airlock was dead, but Jack's universal bypass tool, something he'd cobbled together from spare parts, managed to trigger the emergency manual release. Inside, the artificial gravity was off, and pieces of strange technology floated everywhere. The air was breathable according to his suit's sensors, but he kept his helmet on just in case. That's when he saw her. She was floating unconscious near what looked like a control panel, her long silver hair drifting around her head like a halo. Her skin had a subtle purple tint, and delicate patterns of light pulsed beneath it. She wore an elaborate dress that seemed to be made of living metal, shifting and flowing even in zero gravity. Jack pushed off the wall and caught her gently. Her skin was cold, too cold. The ship's life support was failing. A sound made him turn. 3 floating spheres had appeared, projecting holograms of angry-looking aliens who were definitely not happy to see him. They spoke in a musical language he couldn't understand, but their threatening gestures were clear enough. "Look," Jack said, raising one hand while holding the unconscious alien with the other. "I'm just trying to help. Your ship's been sabotaged. The life support's almost gone. Let me get her to my ship where it's safe, then I can come back and try to fix this." The spheres conferred with each other, their holograms gesturing rapidly. Jack noticed a symbol repeated throughout the ship, the same one on the woman's dress, some kind of royal crest. More alarms started blaring. The ship shuddered, and Jack's suit computer warned him that the hull was becoming unstable. The sphere's holograms looked panicked now. No time to argue. Jack wrapped his arms around the woman and pushed off hard toward the airlock. The spheres followed, still projecting their angry holograms. He'd almost made it when the ship groaned. Cracks appeared in the crystal walls, spreading like spider webs. Jack hit the emergency thrust on his suit, shooting through the airlock just as the ship's hull began to collapse. The spheres barely made it out with him before their ship imploded, sending crystalline shards spinning into space. "Captain," Jack called through his comm, "get the medbay ready and, maybe alert Earth that we've made first contact. I've got an unconscious alien royalty here who's not going to be happy when she wakes up and sees her ship is gone." As he jetted back toward the Star Wanderer with his precious cargo, Jack couldn't help but think that his life was about to become much more complicated. He just didn't know how right he was. The med bay of the Star Wanderer wasn't designed for alien royalty. Jack watched as the ship's doctor scratched his head, staring at readings he couldn't understand. The alien woman lay on the bed, her silver hair spread out like starlight against the plain white pillow. The three floating spheres hovered nearby, still projecting angry holograms. "Her body temperature is rising," the doctor said. "I think that's good. Hard to tell when you don't know what's normal for her species." Jack nodded, then jumped as a massive ship appeared outside their window. It was huge, at least 20 times bigger than the Star Wanderer and made of the same crystal-like material as the destroyed vessel. "Well," the captain said from the doorway, "looks like the cavalry's here." The alien ship's tractor beam caught them before anyone could react. Jack's stomach lurched as the Star Wanderer was pulled into a massive docking bay. Through the windows, he could see hundreds of aliens rushing toward them, all with the same purple-tinted skin and flowing metallic clothes. The floating spheres zipped to the airlock, seemingly excited. Jack heard the sound of the outer door being opened. "Don't shoot," the captain muttered as the inner airlock door slid open. "We're about to find out if saving her was the right choice." A group of tall aliens entered, their clothes more elaborate than any Jack had seen in sci-fi movies. The floating spheres played what looked like a recording of everything that had happened. The aliens' expressions changed from angry to surprised to impressed. One of them stepped forward and touched a small device on his neck. "We thank you for saving Princess Crystal," he said in slightly mechanical English, "though your methods were unorthodox." Jack blinked. "Princess. Indeed. You are now aboard the royal flagship of the Star Empire. I am First Advisor Reed." He paused, looking at Jack's oil-stained coveralls with what might have been distaste. "The princess must be moved to our medical facilities. You will accompany us." "Me? Why?" "Because she is still holding your hand." Jack looked down. Sure enough, the princess's delicate purple fingers were wrapped tightly around his wrist. He hadn't even noticed. The next few hours were a blur of crystal corridors and strange rooms. The alien medical bay looked more like an art gallery, with flowing shapes and pulsing lights everywhere. Jack watched as doctors in floating chairs examined the princess, their instruments humming with energy he could feel in his teeth. "Your quick action saved her life," First Advisor Reed said. "The saboteurs had planted a device that was slowly freezing her body. In our culture, cold is deeply dangerous." Jack remembered how cold her skin had felt. "Will she be okay?" "Yes, though now we face a different problem." Reed's translator crackled. "You have seen the princess in a moment of weakness. Our customs are very clear about such things. You must either become part of her official court or have your memory erased. That's not much of a choice." "Indeed, though perhaps it is fitting. We have long debated making contact with humans. Now, thanks to your actions, that decision has been made for us." Reed's expression was unreadable. "The princess is asking for you." Jack approached the bed where Princess Crystal lay, now awake and sitting up. Her eyes were deep purple with flecks of silver, and when she smiled, small lights danced under her skin. She spoke, her voice musical, and touched her own translator. "You are the one who saved me." "Yes, Your Highness. I'm Jack. Jack Thompson. I'm just a mechanic." There is no just about saving a life. She was still holding his hand. "Will you stay? There is much our peoples could learn from each other." Jack looked around at the alien technology, the floating medical equipment, the crystal walls. Everything was beautiful, advanced, and completely different from what he knew. It was terrifying and exciting all at once. "Yes," he said. "I'll stay." He had no idea that the real challenges were just beginning. 2 weeks aboard the royal flagship had taught Jack many things. First, the Star Empire loved rules. There were rules for walking, rules for eating, and even rules for how to look at the ceiling. Second, their ships, while beautiful, had serious design flaws. And third, someone really wanted the princess dead. Jack stood in the massive engine room, looking at the crystal power cores. He'd been given permission to study their technology after he'd fixed a problem that had stumped their engineers for months. The solution had been simple. They'd been thinking too complicated. "These power readings don't make sense," he muttered, checking his tablet. The aliens had given him one of their computers, but he preferred his old Earth tech. It might be basic, but at least he understood it. A soft chime announced Princess Crystal's arrival. She floated in on what looked like a small disk of light, her silver hair flowing behind her. Jack still wasn't used to how graceful everything in the Star Empire was. "You seem troubled," she said, stepping off the disk. Over the past weeks, she'd started speaking more like humans, dropping the overly formal language she'd been taught. "Something's wrong with the power flow." Jack pointed to his readings. "See these spikes? They're too regular to be natural. Someone's been tampering with the system." Crystal moved closer, her presence making the lights in the room pulse slightly brighter. That was another thing Jack had learned. The aliens had a natural connection to their crystal technology. "Show me," she said. Jack pulled up more data on his tablet. "Look here. Every 3 days, there's a power surge in Section 47. But when I check the logs, nobody's supposed to be in that section. It's listed as empty storage. That section," Crystal's eyes widened, "that's next to my private chambers." They looked at each other, understanding dawning. Jack quickly pulled up a schematic of the ship. "The saboteurs who attacked your transport. They're here. On this ship. They're using the power surges to mask something. We must tell First Advisor Reed," Crystal said, turning to leave. "Wait." Jack grabbed her hand, then quickly let go, remembering it was against protocol to touch royalty without permission. "Sorry, but think about it. How did the saboteurs get access to your transport? To this ship? To the power systems? This has to go deep." Crystal was quiet for a moment, the lights under her skin pulsing with thought. "You think someone in the court is involved? I think we need proof before we tell anyone." Jack looked at his tablet again. "The next power surge should happen tomorrow. If we can catch them in the act." "It would be dangerous," Crystal said. "If you're right about someone in the court being involved, we'd be facing them alone." Jack grinned. "That's why they won't expect it. They're all so focused on doing things the proper way, they'll never think we'd break protocol and investigate on our own." Crystal smiled back, and Jack felt his heart skip. He'd been seeing that smile more often lately. "Very well," she said. "But we do this together. I'm tired of being protected all the time. Besides," she added with a hint of mischief, "it's against at least 15 royal protocols for you to investigate this alone." "Only 15. I must be slipping." Jack turned back to his tablet, trying to focus on the data instead of how close she was standing. "We'll need to be careful. If we're right about this, it would mean the biggest conspiracy in Star Empire history." Crystal's expression hardened. "And I want to know why they're trying to kill me." Jack nodded, already planning. He'd learned that the Star Empire's rigid thinking was both their strength and their weakness. They never looked for simple solutions to complex problems. But Jack Thompson was human. And humans were very, very good at finding simple solutions. "Tomorrow then," he said, "we'll catch them in the act." Neither of them knew they were walking into a trap that would change everything. Section 47 was dark when Jack and Crystal arrived. They had waited until the ship's night cycle, when most of the crew was resting. Jack's tablet showed another power surge building, right on schedule. "Remember," Jack whispered, "if anything goes wrong, you get out. I'll handle it." Crystal gave him a look that clearly said, "Not happening," and moved forward. The lights under her skin dimmed to almost nothing. Jack had to admit she was better at sneaking than he'd expected from a princess. They reached the storage room just as his tablet registered the surge. Inside, they found not storage containers, but a room full of humming crystal machinery. 3 robed figures stood around what looked like a control panel, their hands moving over the crystals. "That's an energy collector," Crystal whispered, "but it's been modified." One of the figures turned suddenly. "Now," he shouted. The trap was sprung. Panels in the walls slid open, revealing more robed figures. Crystal lights flashed, and some kind of energy net shot toward them. Jack's human instincts kicked in. He dove forward, rolling under the net, and came up swinging his wrench. The aliens clearly weren't expecting physical combat. Their society considered it primitive. The wrench connected with the crystal machinery, sending sparks flying. "Stop him!" Someone yelled in the Star Empire's musical language. "Don't let him damage the collector." Crystal raised her hands, and the lights in the room pulsed. The crystal technology responded to her royal blood, panels cracking and systems shorting out. But one of the robed figures pulled out a device Jack recognized, the same kind that had been used to sabotage her transport. "Crystal, duck!" Jack shouted, throwing his wrench. It spun through the air, hitting the device just as it fired. The freezing beam went wide, coating the wall in frost. 2 attackers rushed Jack while another 3 moved toward Crystal. But living on cargo ships had taught Jack how to fight in tight spaces. He grabbed a loose crystal rod and used it like a staff, sweeping one attacker's legs while blocking another's energy weapon. Crystal proved she wasn't helpless either. She moved with fluid grace, using her connection to the ship's systems to turn off gravity panels under her attackers' feet, sending them floating helplessly toward the ceiling. "The collector's overloading," one of the robed figures shouted. "We have tow." The machine exploded in a shower of crystal shards. Jack dove toward Crystal, shielding her with his body as pieces of crystal bounced off his back. When he looked up, most of the attackers were gone, having fled through hidden passages in the walls. But they caught one. The ship's security forces arrived minutes later, along with First Advisor Reed. The captured attacker's hood was pulled back, revealing the face of Court Minister Gray, one of the Empire's highest officials. "Why?" Crystal demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "You were my father's friend." "Because you would destroy everything we are." Gray spat. "Bringing in humans, changing our ways. The Empire has stood unchanged for 10,000 years. We will not let you ruin that with your progress." "Progress isn't ruin," Jack said, still standing protectively close to Crystal. "It's survival. Look how easily we found your plot, because you never thought anyone would look for a simple solution." Reed stepped forward. "Princess, this incident, it changes things. A court minister involved in assassination attempts. There will have to be a full investigation." "Yes," Crystal said, her voice growing stronger. "And changes made. We cannot let fear of progress trap us in the past." She turned to Jack, smiling. "Sometimes the old ways need new ideas." Jack smiled back, then winced. His back was cut up from the crystal shards. "You're hurt," Crystal said, touching his arm. "You saved my life." "Again." "Just doing my job." "No," she said softly. "You're doing much more than that." As medical teams arrived and security forces began searching for the other conspirators, Jack realized something had changed. The way Crystal was looking at him, the way others in the room were watching them. The old barriers were starting to crack, like the shattered crystals around them. The Grand Hall of the Star Empire's flagship was packed with alien nobles, their skin glowing with different shades of purple and blue. Jack stood before the Royal Council, trying not to fidget in the formal clothes they'd given him. After the fight with the conspirators, everything had changed. "This is unacceptable," Lord Bright said, his voice echoing through the crystal chamber. "A human cannot court a princess. It goes against every tradition we have." "He saved my life. Twice." Crystal stood from her royal seat, the lights under her skin pulsing with anger, and helped uncover a plot against the throne. "Which is why he hasn't been sent back to his cargo ship," another council member said. "But to consider him as a potential royal consort, impossible." Jack cleared his throat. "With respect, I haven't actually asked to be anyone's consort." "But you care for the princess," First Advisor Reed said. "It wasn't a question." Jack looked at Crystal, saw the way she was watching him, and decided to be honest. Yes, I do. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Jack caught phrases like genetic incompatibility and cultural contamination among the musical alien language. There is one way, an elderly council member said, silencing the others. The ancient trials. If the human wishes to prove himself worthy of royal attention, let him face the same tests all potential royal consorts must pass. Crystal stepped forward. Those trials were designed for our people. No human cold. I'll do it, Jack said. The room went quiet. Even Crystal looked surprised. You don't understand, she said softly. The trials test abilities our people have developed over thousands of years. The crystal resonance test alone requires. Then I'll find another way, Jack said. That's what humans do. We adapt. The council muttered among themselves. Finally, Lord Bright spoke. Very well. 3 trials. First, the crystal resonance chamber, where you must harmonize with our sacred crystals. Second, the void dance, where you must navigate in zero gravity through an energy maze. Finally, the mind meld, where you must share thoughts with the princess herself. If you fail, Reed added, you will be sent back to Earth with no memory of your time here. Jack looked at the impossible challenges ahead of him, then at Crystal. Her expression was worried, but there was something else there too. Hope. When do we start? The crystal resonance chamber was a dome-shaped room made entirely of singing crystals. Jack stood in the center, surrounded by floating crystal shards that hummed with energy. He was supposed to make them harmonize, something that required the natural connection to crystal technology that all Star Empire citizens had. But Jack had studied their engines. He understood how the crystals worked, even if he couldn't connect to them naturally. He pulled out a small device he'd built in his spare time, a modified version of his universal bypass tool. That's not allowed, Lord Bright protested. He's using human technology. The rules say I must harmonize the crystals, Jack said. They don't say how. He activated his device. It sent out precise vibrations, making the crystals resonate one by one. Soon, the entire chamber was singing in perfect harmony. The council members watched in shock as Jack conducted the crystal symphony with his homemade tool. Impossible, someone whispered. No, Crystal said proudly. Innovative. Jack moved through the chamber, adjusting frequencies, creating a harmony that had never been heard before, a blend of human ingenuity and alien technology. When the last crystal joined the song, even Lord Bright looked impressed. First trial passed, Reed announced. But the void dance will not be so easily solved with clever devices. Jack caught Crystal's eye and grinned. The council thought they were testing his worthiness for their society. But with each trial, he was proving that humans could do more than just fit into their world. They could make it better. Now he just had to figure out how to dance in zero gravity. The void dance chamber was a massive sphere of shifting energy fields. Jack floated in the center, wearing only a light suit without thrusters or tools. Around him, patterns of light formed complex mazes that changed every few seconds. The path through the void must be perfect, Lord Bright announced. Any contact with the energy fields means failure. Crystal watched from the observation deck, her hands clasped tightly. The last human to pass the crystal resonance test had given everyone hope. Now, young aliens filled the viewing area, eager to see what Jack would do. Jack looked at the maze of light, remembering his years of zero-gravity repair work. The aliens saw this as a dance, a graceful demonstration of their natural ability to sense energy fields. But to him, it was just another day fixing engines in space. He pushed off gently, using the micro-movements he learned from countless spacewalks. The energy maze shifted, but Jack was already moving, tucking and rolling through a gap before it closed. The audience gasped. He's not dancing. Lord Bright protested. This is not how it's done. He's surviving, Crystal said, just like his people always have. Jack moved through the void like a spacewalker, using momentum, and timing instead of the traditional flowing movements. When the maze changed, he changed with it, treating each energy beam like a piece of hot engine machinery to be avoided. The final section was the hardest, a spiral of moving energy that seemed impossible to navigate. Jack studied it for a moment, then did something that made the entire audience cry out. He went straight through the middle. "No!" Lord Bright shouted. But Jack had seen what the aliens hadn't, a pattern in the spiral's movement. By timing it perfectly, he slipped through the gaps that appeared every 3 seconds, gaps too small for the aliens' traditional dance moves, but perfect for his efficient style. He reached the other side untouched. Second trial passed, Reed announced, his voice filled with amazement. But there was no time to celebrate. Guards burst into the chamber, their crystal weapons glowing. "The conspirators," one shouted. "They've taken control of the engine room. They're trying to overload the power core." The council erupted in panic. A core overload would destroy the ship and everyone on it. "They're using my success against us," Jack realized. "All these trials, they've been watching, learning how I think. The sabotage will be simple, direct." Crystal's eyes widened. "Like a human would do it." "We have to get to the engine room," Jack said. "But first, the mind meld. The final trial. We need to do it now." "There's no time," Lord Bright protested. "There's no choice," Crystal said. "If we're going to stop them, we need to work together. Truly together." She placed her hands on either side of Jack's face. The lights under her skin pulsed brighter, and Jack felt a strange tingling in his mind. "Don't fight it," she whispered. The world exploded into color and sensation. Jack felt Crystal's thoughts merge with his, her memories, her feelings, her growing love for him. And she felt his mind too, the practical problem-solving, the quick thinking, and the deep care he had for her. When they separated, something had changed. They could still feel each other, like an echo in their minds. "The final trial is past," Reed said quickly. "Now go. Save our ship." Jack and Crystal raced toward the engine room, their minds working in perfect sync. Behind them, the young aliens who had watched Jack's trials were already practicing his efficient movements, blending them with their traditional dances. Change was coming to the Star Empire, ready or not. But first, they had to survive the next few minutes. The engine room was chaos when Jack and Crystal arrived. The massive crystal power core pulsed with dangerous levels of energy, its usual blue glow now an angry red. 5 conspirators worked at the control panels, while others held the engine room staff at gunpoint. Thanks to their newly formed mind meld, Jack could feel Crystal's knowledge of the ship's systems flowing into his thoughts. At the same time, she understood his quick, practical way of solving problems. "The core's going to overload in 3 minutes," Jack said, ducking behind a crystal column. They'd locked out the normal shutdown procedures. "Good," came a familiar voice. Minister Gray stepped out from behind the core, holding one of the freezing weapons. "The Empire needs a cleansing fire to burn away this human contamination." "You're wrong," Crystal said, stepping into view despite Jack's mental protest. "Look around you. You used human tactics to sabotage the core. You're already changing, even as you fight against change. Better to destroy everything than watch our civilization become weak." Gray fired his weapon. Crystal dove aside as Jack rolled forward, coming up with a length of broken crystal pipe. He deflected the freezing beam back at Gray, coating the minister's weapon in frost. It exploded in his hands, sending him stumbling backward. But the core was still building to overload. Jack could feel Crystal's panic mixing with his own determination. "The containment field controls," she said through their link. "There. Behind that panel." "I know," Jack finished. Working together, sharing knowledge through the mind meld, they moved like one person. The other conspirators fired their weapons, but Crystal raised her hands, using her royal connection to the ship's systems to create shield of energy around them. Jack slid under it, reached the panel, and began rewiring it with practiced speed. "You can't stop it," Gray shouted. The overload is too far gone. Watch me, Jack grunted. Then, through the mind meld, Crystal, when I say now, pour all your power into the containment field. He could feel her understanding instantly. No need to explain the plan. She saw it in his mind as he thought it. Jack's human ingenuity combined with her natural connection to the ship's technology. It was crazy enough to work. Now, Crystal channeled her energy into the systems just as Jack reversed the containment field polarity. Instead of trying to contain the overload, they turned it back on itself. The core flared blindingly bright, then began to dim. Impossible. Grace stumbled back. How? Because we worked together, Crystal said, her skin glowing with power, human innovation, and Star Empire tradition, making something new, something better. The guards arrived, taking the conspirators into custody. The engine room staff stared at Jack and Crystal with a mixture of awe and wonder. Through their mental link, they could feel each other's relief. And something deeper. Later, standing before the Royal Council, Jack held Crystal's hand openly. The old laws are clear, Lord Bright began, then stopped. But perhaps it is time for new laws. First Advisor Reed stepped forward. The human has passed all 3 trials. He has saved the princess multiple times, and now the entire ship. More than that, he has shown us a new way forward. The old laws say nothing about humans, because we never imagined this possibility. Then we will write new laws, Crystal said. Ones that honor our traditions while embracing progress. She squeezed Jack's hand. Starting with this. The council chamber erupted in cheers, led by the younger aliens who had watched Jack's trials. Change had come to the Star Empire, not through revolution or force, but through love and understanding. 1 month later, Jack stood in his formal Earth clothes, modified with flowing crystal elements, as Crystal walked toward him in a dress that blended Star Empire elegance with human simplicity. Their wedding would be remembered as the moment 2 civilizations truly began to understand each other. And it all started because a simple mechanic decided to check on a damaged ship.